Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of the Gate 102 podcast. A massive thank you for tuning in, and I hope you're all doing well and are having a good week. It's not too far away from Christmas now. Now, if you've listened to my recent episodes, then you'll know that I've been saying for a while now that I will dedicate an episode towards Sam Allardyce, England's only manager with a 100% record. Well, you'll be pleased to know, or not pleased to know, that episode has finally come. So, I'll be going through Sam's 67 days in charge of England. I would say it's like a Christmas special, but I don't think Sam Allardyce particularly promotes festivity. But it's a bonus episode. I thought doing it around Christmas would be the best time to do it. I'll talk about his appointment, touch on his one game in charge, and then I'll also go into how him leaving probably benefited England in the long term. And I've also got a few funny tweets to read out at the end, which I hope you'll enjoy. This episode will be slightly longer than usual, as the structure is slightly different. So get your snowballs, your mince pies, or your pints of wine, and yeah, let's get into it. Now, before I begin, I must firstly mention that I strongly doubt Sam Allardyce is listening to this, but if by the off chance he is, then all I would say is please don't take offence to anything I say in the next 20 minutes or so. I'm sure he's not listening, and it would be a bit sad if he was, but yeah, it's all just a bit of a laugh at the end of the day. If you're listening, Sam, hello. So when he was appointed, England had obviously had the disastrous European Championships in 2016. I think it's fair to say it was up there as the lowest of lows for some people. On a personal point of view, Euro 2016 was my first tournament watching England, so not the best experience for myself. Losing to Iceland was just simply catastrophic. But it was the the way that we lost, which made it worse as well. The whole tournament stunk of Hodgson sort of making it up as he was going along. He didn't look like he had a plan, and if he did have a plan, it clearly didn't work. Yeah, he looked out of his depth, in my opinion, and always liked Hodgson as a person, but it was inevitable that he was going to be end of him after the Iceland game. And the thing that I've always found funny is after the Iceland defeat, Roy obviously had his press conference where he announced his resignation, and he had his resignation speech in his pocket. And I keep thinking to myself, did he write it between the game, or did he write it before the game or before the tournament began? Because I can't imagine him writing it in between the final whistle and the press conference. So, yeah, I've never really thought about that, really, to be honest. But it's weird how he had his resignation speech ready to be said, because he must have written it pretty quickly. But anyway, Hodgson went, and you do start thinking, what's next? Who's next? There was obviously a lot of talk about Gareth Southgate potentially stepping up from the under-21s, but that didn't happen initially. I seem to remember Rio Ferdinand and Alan Shearer put themselves out there as potential contenders on air, but yeah, the less said about that, the better. But in the end, the FA decided that the man for the job was Sam Allardyce, who signed a 2-year deal until the end of the 2018 World Cup. He saw off competition from Alan Pardew, Eddie Howe, Steve Bruce, who was, I think, second favourite, and apparently the USA manager, Jurgen Klinsmann, I think I've said that right, he was also linked to the job as well. So lots of candidates, but Martin Glenn, chief of the FA, decided to go for Sam Allardyce after helping keep Sunderland up in the Premier League the season before. In terms of his career before the England job, he'd obviously grown a high reputation of keeping clubs up in the Premier League who were in relegation battles. He'd obviously done well in the Championship as well, earning promotions at both West Ham and Bolton, taking them to the top tier. So he didn't have a bad record going into the job. And despite the things I'm going to say this episode, believe it or not, I could sort of understand the appointment in some regard. He was well known for getting the best out of teams that weren't that great, like he did with Sunderland, and was very good at sort of maximising the potential of the squad that he was given. He was very good at turning teams around that were struggling. And I personally thought this would be beneficial, as England weren't in a great place, didn't have the greatest pool of talent. Therefore, I thought he could have succeeded, as he could have been able to get the best out of the team and replicate what he'd done at club level onto the international stage. So I sort of understood it and wasn't massively against it, to be honest. And also the other candidates out there weren't that great. This is something I didn't know until the other day, but apparently Allardyce was actually first interviewed for the England job following Eriksen's departure after the 2006 World Cup, which I found really interesting, but obviously Steve McLaren was appointed in the end. I wasn't born at the time, but apparently Allardyce was very vocal about his disappointment in not being selected back in 2006. I think he goes showed that he always had the desire and the vision to be manager of England one day. As we know, that dream became reality, and which later turned into regret. There's one thing Allardyce said in his first press conference that I think made many England fans turn against him before he'd even managed a game. You can probably guess what I'm saying, and it's about the Wayne Rooney comment, with Allardyce saying that Rooney could play where he wants, and if Rooney wants to play for England, he'll play for England. For me, this comment was ludicrous, and Rooney got quite a lot of stick, but for me, it was forced upon by Allardyce saying that comment, and I felt a bit sorry for Rooney, to be honest, because he was getting all this criticism when, in actual fact, it was Allardyce who sort of put it all on him. But I think the thing that stands out about that comment is the whole Allardyce-Rooney situation made it clear that Sam wasn't particularly focused on bringing through upcoming talent as much as Southgate was. I think if you look at the 2018 World Cup squad, we had a really young and promising team that's full of potential. And I'm confident if Allardyce would have stayed on, I think the first question is, would we have actually got to the World Cup? Would we have actually qualified? But if we did qualify, for me, people like Maguire, Trippier, Lingard, Pickford, I don't think I strongly doubt they'd be included. Now, I know we'll never know what Allardyce would have done because we can only go off one game, can't we? But I couldn't have imagined him having the courage to give such freedom to these young players the same way Southgate did. But I mean, some of the players I've mentioned might have made the squad, say, like Pickford might have made the squad, Lingard might have made the squad, but I can't say for sure that they would have started in the big games. And this is why I think it's a good thing Allardyce left so soon, because in my opinion, he was a barrier to developing young players and bringing players through. But at the same time, he only managed one game, so I can't really back any of this up other than my gut feeling, really. So Sam was supposed to play his first game at Wembley in a friendly on the 1st of September 2016. However, that game got cancelled, meaning his first time in the dugout was against Slovakia away from home. And this was the first of 10 World Cup qualifiers for England. So a very important game to start off with, and it was important that England got a win. I won't go into his one game in as much detail as I do with Southgate's games, but I will read the team out as I think there's quite a lot to unpick. So Joe Hart started in goal, which I found quite interesting after his performances at Euro 2016. It was then about four of Kyle Walker, Gary Cahill, John Stones and Danny Rose. A midfield three of Eric Dyer, Jordan Henderson, Wayne Rooney. And then a front three, Raheem Sterling, Adam Lallana and Harry Kane leading the line up front. Now, I appreciate that we didn't have the greatest pool of players to pick from, not the greatest talent in the world. But for me, I didn't really understand the system, because the biggest concern was the link up between the midfield and the attack. You had Dyer and Henderson sort of sitting in front of the defence. Neither of them players are particularly going to create anything. So you then had Rooney playing in the so-called number 10 role. But the problem was he kept dropping really deep in the same line of Dyer and Henderson. And it all became very static, and it meant Sterling, Kane and Lallana had no support from the midfield. And it just wasn't working really. And that's why when Southgate came in, he instantly put a Dele Alli or a Jesse Lingard in that number 10 role, because they could sort of get closer to the striker and intervene with them. Just offer a bit more support to the attack. But one thing I will give Allardyce credit for is that he started John Stones, a player who didn't play a minute of the European Championships in 2016. So it was nice to see him being given the opportunity. But in terms of the game itself, England failed to create anything really. And I think playing Rooney, who could play where he wants, remember, playing Rooney behind the striker just didn't work. And it didn't work in the Euros. So it was frustrating to see it continue to happen in Allardyce's first game, and first and only game, obviously. I'm not saying the reason England didn't play well was because of Rooney, but the whole situation just wasn't helped, and it made England so disjointed. But Slovakia went down to 10 men just before the 60-minute mark. And I think this gave England quite a lift, and it allowed them to start having more control of the game in the hope that they would finally score. And we thought they had. Theo Walcott put the ball in the net towards the end of the game, but he was given offside, meaning the goal did not stand. And this was a shame because it looked like it came off one of the Slovakia players before Walcott had the shot. So, controversial maybe, but it remained 0-0. And time was ticking. England kept on fighting. And a lot of people, myself included, thought that Allardyce would only manage a point on his opening game in charge. Well, in the 95th minute of the game, Adam Lallana had the shot that went through the goalkeeper, slowly went over the line after a Danny Rose cross, and England were in the lead and grabbed all 3 points. And this is obviously a relief, and those are the words Clyde Tilsley used in his commentary, and it was a relief. Relief for Sam more than anyone. Because let's be honest, as England manager, it always helps when you win your first game. Otherwise, the media pile on and the scrutiny you're going to get if you don't win your first game will be so intense. And although England did win 1-0, there were lots of people questioning the performance from England, as it was only until Slovakia went down to 10 men where we started playing, to be honest. It certainly wasn't a performance to be proud of, but it was 3 points for the three lines. And it's the win that's the most important thing. So Allardyce said after the win that he was looking forward to many more games in the qualification campaign. Obviously that didn't happen, so I think that leads us nicely to him leaving, obviously on mutual consent. But let's be honest, he was forced to resign due to his actions. So what did Sam actually do? So Allardyce had a meeting with undercover reporters posing as businessmen before he took charge of his first England training session. So during the meeting, which was recorded on camera, it was confirmed that Allardyce said it was not a problem to bypass rules on third-party player ownership, and claimed he knew of agents who were doing it all the time. It was further said that a £400,000 deal was struck for him to represent the company to Far East investors and to be a keynote speaker at events. In the meeting, Allardyce also referred to Hodgson as "woy," making fun of his manner of speaking, and criticised Gary Neville, who was obviously one of Hodgson's assistants. So third-party ownership occurs when investment companies take a stake in the economic rights of players, and it's been described as slavery in the past, and the practice was banned by FIFA in 2008. Sorry, it's banned by the FA in 2008 and by FIFA in May 2015, and Allardyce claimed he knew a way around that. So that is a summary of why he had no other option but to leave, really. I think the thing that strikes out for me is how scrutinised the England job is. Having reporters almost be Confederates and pretend to be businessmen to try and make you say something that you shouldn't and secretly film you. It's just incredible, really. And it doesn't happen in most managerial jobs, but England jobs just a new level. But clearly what Allardyce said was wrong and didn't go hand in hand with the conduct that the FA wanted. But worse than that, for me, it showed that he wasn't particularly a great leader or a person you could trust. Just the complete opposite of Gareth Southgate, really. But this whole situation meant the FA had no choice but to force Allardyce out the door, really. And although he wasn't officially sacked, it was clear that he had no other option but to leave, and as he let the FA down as well as himself down. And I think if he had stayed on after the incident, the media and the press would have made it so uncomfortable for him. made it so difficult and just wouldn't let the whole situation go. And as much as the FA sort of had to come to that conclusion, they did say it was a hard decision to make because they really did see Allardyce as a great fit for the England setup. But yeah, that was the end of him. And Allardyce went, and it's funny because he's worked his whole career to get to his dream job as England manager. And now all he's become is a straightforward pub quiz answer, really, of who was the manager who only survived one game as England. So, yeah. But clearly it was his own fault as to why he left. And I'd have loved to know what would have happened if Allardyce continued, more out of curiosity rather than desire. Because I personally don't think there's a chance it would have gone the same way the Southgate sort of journey did. Although one thing they both have in common is they like leaving it late against Slovakia, don't they? Obviously, Jude Bellingham scoring in the 95th minute of the game against Slovakia in Euro 2024. And yeah, Allardyce, Adam Lallana saving him as well. So yeah, that's one thing they both have in common. But there's a tweet I found on Twitter, funny enough, about Big Sam. And I'll just read it out, and I think it's so true. Okay, so Sam Allardyce is a disgrace and needs to be punished, humiliated and made an example of. Therefore, he should continue as England manager. And this did make me laugh because it sort of emphasises the role of the England manager and how it's so negative and full of scrutiny. Yeah, obviously that tweet was wrote before it was announced that he was sacked or resigned, or how you want to call it. There's another tweet by David Baddiel, obviously comedian who's famous for the production of the song Is Coming Home. He wrote on Twitter, "Don't understand the shock around Allardyce and third parties. On any given night, he doesn't seem like a man who stopped at two parties." Yes, that was no funny one. Another tweet that made me laugh was the following. "Well, Allardyce has gone, but at least he'll have gone out like a true English hero, eating a Chinese and necking a pint of wine." So yeah, it's quite a few funny tweets. Did a bit of digging before, tried to find a few. And yeah, as much as like the Allardyce situation is a little bit funny, it really didn't reflect well on England at the time. Obviously, I think it's fair to say we were in such a bad place and you were really concerned. And by the way, as much as I've spent a lot of time taking the mick out of Sam and criticising some of his decisions, I do actually have quite a bit of respect for him. However, the contrast between the period he was in charge and the experiences we had under Gareth Southgate, the difference is incredible. And I think if you look at the World Cup in 2018, I don't think Allardyce does what Southgate does. But talking of the World Cup, that's what's coming very soon. So what I'm going to do, my next episode, will be talking about the squad Gareth selected for the tournament. So another sort of bonus episode. And then following that, I'll talk about England's 2 warm-up friendlies, which were against Nigeria and Costa Rica. And then after that, it'll be time for Tunisia. And I'll be talking about that and the following 6 games. And yeah, it'll be time to relive that summer all over again. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. It's a little bit bonus, a little bit different to usual. I will throw in these sort of extra episodes every now and then that goes against my usual format. But this is my last episode of 2024. So a massive thank you for listening, not just today, but all the episodes I've done this year. All still available on both Spotify and YouTube. Obviously still early days, so please do give me feedback and tell me how I can improve the podcast. If there's anything you'd like me to do different or extra, please do let me know. But thanks for listening, and yeah, hope you enjoyed listening to them as much as I've enjoyed recording them. But most importantly, I hope you and your family have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. It's a special time, but also it can be a tough time for many. Life can be tough at times, especially this time of year, and I hope these episodes that I've been doing have helped as much as possible, I suppose. But take care of yourselves, and yeah, once again, thank you for listening. And I'll be back next year, where I'll hopefully bring back many more memories of the Southgate era. Cheers.